This is the Hope Not Nope podcast,
where we answer your questions and share inspirational stories to fill your soul with hope.
Our mission is to empower hope to those who have been plagued by nope.
I'm Dr. Dylan Caswell.
And I'm Brandi.
And we're here to bring you out of the nope and into hope.
Welcome to the first episode of the Hope Not Nope podcast. We are thrilled to have you here listening. Thank you for tuning in. Every single episode is going to feature questions from you as well as hope stories. And so Dylan and I, this past weekend, we were in Lake Placid, New York for a CrossFit competition. We got to see all these amazing people, these amazing athletes, and it was really a great time. And so Dylan, will you share your hope story from this past weekend?
Yeah, for sure. It was a great weekend, Lake Placid. I think one of the fun parts of it is that we camped out.
Yeah.
And it just happened to be the weekend that it rained the entire weekend through Lake Placid. So Friday night, rained through the night, and then Saturday rained through the whole day. The competition did a great job of trying to make some moves where people weren't getting soaked with the warm-up areas and things like that. Mm-hmm. But my hope story, I'm not going to share too much of it because it's your story to share. Mm. And I think I'll get too emotional trying to share it. But I'll just say that for the past few years, I've been able to work with Brandi as her CrossFit coach, sports performance coach, and hope coach. And this was the first competition that she was able to compete in. And when you hear her story of the nope that she was served and the victory that she accomplished this past weekend, it's truly incredible that you became hope this past weekend. So I'll pass it back to you so you can share okay. more of that story.
Thank you. I appreciate you. So a quick version of my story is that about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, I was injured in a cross-country race and basically ended up hurting my foot, and then was told I had chronic pain, that I'd never be able to really work out again or be a competitor or an athlete. And so for the majority of the past 10 years, I haven't really done much when it comes to physical fitness because I was in constant chronic pain and just really didn't have, I kind of just accepted the injury. And so working with Dylan over the past couple of years has really changed my mind, changed my body, changed my perspective on life. And so this CrossFit competition, I was in the scale division because I'm still learning the movements and still growing in strength and in confidence and things like that. But one of my favorite hope stories from the whole weekend was, I'll share two quick ones. The one was I climbed a rope for the first time. I had only touched a rope once before, and it was about a year and a half ago. And I think I went up maybe 2 feet, but I was afraid to fall. I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust the situation. Not because the gym wasn't safe, but because I just was not a confident athlete at the time. And I have not touched a rope since. And I find out that one of the events had 3 rope climbs in it. And so Dylan taught me quite literally like 5 minutes before the event started. And in the event, I was able to do all 3 rope climbs, which was really awesome and very proud of myself. The atmosphere was really cool. And the second hope story I haven't actually shared with Dylan yet. And so I'm excited to share with him. But as I mentioned, my injury was from running, and I'm still not a confident runner. Distance running is not the thing that I say is the thing that brings me the most joy by any means. And the weekend had a distance run on Whiteface Mountain. And so it was a trail run. And out of every single event, these 6 events, that was the one that I scored the highest on. Oh. And so just very, very redemptive, very just surreal for me. And so, and I think for you as well. So
very, very surreal. I'm still like trying to hold I watch the videos through the weekend and it brings me to tears because the whole weekend, the announcers, here's Brandi Copeland, look at her form with the Hope Not Nope t-shirt on, but nobody really knew Brandi's hope story and the nope that she'd faced and what she just turned it into. Because this wasn't just a typical weekend competition. Like usually competitions are 1 day and maybe 3 events. This was 6 events over 2 days. So at the end of day 1, you're feeling it. You're fatigued. you're tired. It's raining the whole day, the whole night. You're trying to get calories into fuel for the next day, but your body really doesn't want to eat at this point. So you're just trying to get calories in and you're just trying to make it to the next day. And to go from being told that you'll never exercise again, you'll never run again, to now competing in a 6 event, 2-day competition in which had a lot of running in it. Like we were both shocked with the amount of running.
3 out of the 6 events had running in it.
and to do that and that's so, like you said, redemptive, that the initial injury that kind of helped to cascade this note that you faced, and then your redemption story, your victory of your best score being on the mountain run.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it can get better than that. I think a lot of people look at places of like, oh, did you get first, second, or third place? But people forget to ask, what's the story that even led to you being here? Like, what's your victory of being here? And it was an honor just to be able to witness that and to know all the work that you've put in from the time of that injury up to this past weekend. I can't think of a better hope story to start off this podcast than what you've accomplished.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really such a gift. I look at my journey in CrossFit. I look at my journey as an athlete and as a coach for basketball and all these things. And to be a competitor again was just so surreal after 10 years. And so thank you for all your help with it. But now we're going to answer questions from listeners. And we have our first question from someone named Joe, who actually had a question in the spirit of CrossFit. Okay. And so Joe asked, what workout do you think best encompasses the spirit of Hope Not Nope?
Joe, thank you for that question. It is a really difficult one to answer. And to give background info of what are these different CrossFit workouts, why are they named in the way that they're named? And there's actually, I think we can kind of put it into 2 different compartments, which I think will hopefully circle back to answer the question. So I'm not trying to avoid it, but I'm going to give the background to help with people who may not know the names of these workouts and where they come from. So one category that these workouts are named on is people that have served and sacrificed and given their life for others, whether that's in the military, whether that's in firefighting, whether that's in EMR, but it's people that have really gone above and beyond to sacrifice to give to others. The other category is that there's these benchmark workouts that are named, and they're named after girls. They're known as the CrossFit benchmark girl workouts. And kind of a fun fact with this is that the previous owner of CrossFit, when they created these workouts, they wanted to have standardized tests across every CrossFit gym to get data to see, is the methodology working with what we're trying to accomplish? These workouts, the benchmark girl workouts, are meant to make you feel really terrible. They're very challenging. And so he named them the way that the National Storm Service names hurricanes. Quick names that are like quick girl names, because that's what the workout's meant to be, is like a storm. So I think when we look at both of these categories, we can learn a lot of how they're related to Hope Not Nope. One, from the service aspect of being this quote unquote lifelong athlete, it's not about competing in the sport. It's living out the values of sacrifice, discipline, leadership, giving yourself up to make your team benefit. So in that scenario, there's so many workouts that fall into that Hope Not Nope category. And one of the ones people are probably the most familiar with is Murph. That's done on Memorial Day. That's in honor of Lieutenant Michael Murphy. And Brandi actually competed or did that one this year, the first time, with doing the 100 pull-ups. And she said afterwards, the hardest part was that your heart rate is spiked, but then it stays spiked for as long as it takes you to finish it. Yeah. Which, if you're an elite athlete, 38 to 40 minutes. If you're not this elite, CrossFit's paying your paycheck type of athlete, you're looking at anywhere from 40 minutes up to an hour of continuous work. But in that, you're suffering for a greater purpose. You're suffering to show the respect to the people that have given their lives for you. So it's very meaningful. It's very purposeful. It's a very locked in, focused sacrifice. And so I think any of those workouts could fit into the Hope Not Nope methodology. And then the other side of it, of looking at the storms, it's really interesting. I remember being at this leadership conference, and they talked about 2 animals that don't run away from storms. When a storm happens, they actually go into the storm. One of them is a bull, and the other one is an eagle. And in the book, I actually talk about the eagle a little bit. And I think there's really good analogies that we can learn from that, of that when an eagle sees a storm, all the other birds, they try to fly away from it. They try to get away from it. And in doing that, they actually prolong their suffering because the wind speed continues to follow them. I just thought of a seagull that flies against the wind, but they don't actually go anywhere in parking lots.
Yeah.
But aside from that, eagles, they fly up higher and get up over the storm so they can see better into the storm. And then they actually go out through the other side of it. In leaning into the storm, into the discomfort, into the adversity, they actually decrease their amount of time of suffering by leaning into that discomfort. Now, the first time an eagle learns how to fly, it's not into a storm, it's barely to the next branch. And then they build up to the next branch and the next branch. And then eventually they leave the tree and then come back to the tree. And then they start taking on these bigger things down the road. So when we look at what CrossFit workout is symbolizing hope, not nope, I think it depends on that person that's seeking hope. Where are they coming from? What season are they in? Are they in a season that they need to be able to persevere through long duration suffering because they're giving themselves to others? Or are they in a season that they need to really push into the suffering to be able to get out of it sooner instead of running away from it, and the storm continues to chase them?
I love that answer. That answer is phenomenal. And as you were talking, I was reflecting on the Murph experience of this past year. And for us, we did Murph at a local gym, and that gym had, I don't know, 50 to 100 people there. And so for me, when I think of CrossFit workouts and hope, not nope, I think what Dylan said is exactly it. But I think another thing is community and how important community is. And we did the Murph on Memorial Day with a community of amazing people. And some people do the Murph by themselves, which is fine. But for us, when I think of any workout, the thing that brings up hope, not nope the most is community, because we need other people to help us in the hope journey. We need other people to help us in our healing journey and in the journey of life. So thank you for that awesome answer. And Joe, thank you for that question. The second question that we have is from a listener named Callie. She says, does the hope, not nope method only concern athletics and injury? And if not, how does it expand to other health issues?
Phenomenal question. And again, I'll give a little bit of background, but the subtitle to the book, Hope Not Nope, is Reclaiming Identity as a Lifelong Athlete in a Sick Healthcare System. This idea of lifelong athlete, we kind of went back and forth with a little bit of, do we include it or do we not include it? Because we don't want it to get kind of like pigeonholed into this one idea. So we went with the term lifelong athlete for really two main reasons. One reason was that a lot of the analogies and examples, they come from the sports world. You know, we talk about Kurt Warner, we talk about Space Jam, we talk about the CrossFit Games. And one of the editors, when she was going through it, one of the comments she left is, yeah, this is great work, but I don't know what an Olympic lift of a snatch is. Can you elaborate on what this thing is? And as we started reflecting back through each chapter, we realized how much there is a reference to sports throughout the book. And that's just because that's something that I'm really passionate about. I've just always loved every sport, watching it and participating in it and seeing what it does. But the reason being is not because of seeing goals or touchdowns, like those are cool, but I love seeing the sacrifice that is needed to do a sport. The work that's put in that nobody sees. I mean, you competed this past weekend, but no one has seen the three years of work that you put in, and how every weekend leading up to the competition, we were doing 5 workouts a day just to build capacity to get ready for the stimulus that was coming. Like, people just see the performance, but they don't see all the things that went into it. People look at Steph Curry hitting threes from wherever on the court. They don't see the hours and the sweat that he's put into perfecting his jump shot. And it's really cool to see that on display and the sacrifice that these athletes are making. And for me, lifelong athlete, that's what it's about. It's the values of being an athlete, not necessarily competing, but the idea that you're willing to be disciplined. You're willing to sacrifice for others. You're willing to live out these values because you know that what you're doing is going to serve others and get them to be better versions of themselves. The other reason we have lifelong athlete in there with the Hope Not Know book and methodology is that everybody's an athlete. No matter who you are, it's not identified by competing in a sport. If you're working in a warehouse and you're lifting boxes for 8 to 10 hours a day, you're probably doing more work than what an actual elite athlete is doing. Like that is a strenuous position to be in. If you are a parent that is waking up early to make breakfast, get your kids on the school bus, get them home from school, get their homework done, get them to their activities, keeping a marriage, keeping friendships, working, you're working an elite athlete schedule. You're doing more than what an Olympic athlete's doing throughout the day.
Yeah.
And your stress level's high and you're still maintaining, you're still sacrificing, you're still serving. So everybody is an athlete and everyone should feel like an athlete. It's just all of our competitions are a little bit different, but we are all playing that competition of life. And what do I mean by that? Can you live the most fulfilled life that is meaningful to you?
Yeah. Wow. Exactly. We want people to know that the world is going to be a better place when you live that life that's more fulfilling to you, when you pursue your dreams, when you pursue the life that you were intended to live, rather than living in the monotony or becoming complacent or having the attitude of, oh, this is the cards I've been dealt with and I can't change anything. No, you can. You're worthy of a great life. You're worthy of having the best life possible. And I think that when we look at Hope Not Nope and the book, when we look at Hope Not Nope as a whole, we just want people to know that you can live that life that you're meant to.
Yeah, and know that there's choices. And kind of going back to the first question that Joe submitted with CrossFit, and one thing that I think that is amazing is that these thoughts come up in your head of, can I actually do this? Am I good enough? Am I strong enough? Do I have enough energy to push through? And I don't think a lot of us know how much we're capable of until we're pushed to that. And that's one of my greatest honors as a coach, is that I get to see people and they have no idea what their potential is. So I ask them, what's their goal? And their goal may be, well, I want to be out of back pain and foot pain. And I'm like, wow, that's a great goal. But internally, I'm like, let's see what you can get to, because from the outside, people can see your potential, but it's really hard to see your own potential. But when you make that choice that I'm not going to accept this hand that I was dealt, I'm going to make changes. It's going to be challenging. But one of the most challenging aspects of it is battling the inner thoughts. You're doing a long workout this weekend, 15 minutes. They changed the distance from 400 to 500 meters. So there's adversity thrown into it. The barbell was on the infield, which was muddy. So I actually gave you the tip beforehand, don't drop the bar, because now you're going to be deadlifting it out of the earth instead of from on top of the earth on the surface. So, a lot of adversity was faced in that workout, and you're sore from the first day, you're running, and these thoughts come up of, oh, I can't do this run anymore. I'm too tired. But now you have that choice to make. Where's this thought coming from? And my thought is saying this, but yet my body is still moving. We tend to think, and we hear this all the time, your mind is in control, or you have a lizard brain that's controlling your every movement. And the reality is your mind's not in control. It works in a partnership with your body. So a quick tip I learned from Dr. Joe Tata is that you can say, don't move your arm, don't move your arm, don't move your arm. And you can lift your arm up and down as you're saying, don't lift this in your mind.
Yeah.
So we need to use these things as a partnership to then start unwrapping that potential that we truly have. And once you do that step by step, you start going, I can do one more rep. I can continue running. I can wake up tomorrow. I can get the coffee made. I can get those kids ready. I can get that email sent. I can respond back to that text. I can make that call back. All these things start adding up and adding up over time. And as you add them up, then you get to see your potential. And then you get to look back and go, wow, I never thought this was possible. And then as the coach, I get to sit there and go, I knew it was possible the whole time.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that you got to that. But it's that eagle and the bull going into the storm to then reach your full potential.
For sure. I remember the first time that Dylan and I met, he told me that I was an elite athlete. And I was shook because I had all these injuries. I was afraid to squat. I was afraid to jump. I couldn't do a plank without being in pain. I would not run at all. If there was a running movement, I would walk or I would go do something else because I thought that these things were gonna limit me forever. And he just looks at me and goes, "You're an elite athlete." And so it's beautiful because that you do get to see like this victory, right? But what you're talking about is the past 3 years, there's been little victories over time. It wasn't this like I'm not an elite athlete in the sense of I'm not going to the CrossFit Games this August by any means, but I got to compete in this really great competition this past weekend. And prior to that, I learned how to lift a barbell. I was afraid to deadlift. And here I am growing, and it's been little victories along the way, but that's not just for me, and it's for the listeners, it's for people who read the book, and it's really for everyone. We want them to know that you can have these little victories and dream of massive victories because those will come, but it takes, it's one step after the other.
You said something really important there that made my inside dance and happy and jump, and I'm trying not to dance on the video. But you said, I'm not going to the CrossFit Games this August.
Well, we might have a few
you
years.
Added in this August, where before, like you said, you were afraid to even do a deadlift. So the first time we worked out together, we modified the workout to make it really safe, to now saying, I'm not going to go to the CrossFit Games this August. That's amazing.
Who knows what's going to happen, right? We love the sport, but thank you. Well, let's get on to the next question. Okay. So this last question is from a person listener named Andy. And they said, how do you gently inspire hope in someone who doesn't want to hear it or isn't ready for it?
Andy, thank you for that question. And did we thank Callie? If we didn't, thank you for submitting that question.
Callie. Yeah.
And Andy, that is a phenomenal question. And I think one of the hardest lessons that we've learned is that when you have this thing that has helped thousands of other people, you have these people that have been faced with all this nope, they feel like they're at the end of the line, there's nothing left, and you're able to provide them with a framework to lead themselves towards hope because we're just guiding them. You want to give that to everybody in the world. And the hardest part is oftentimes the people that you want to give it to the most are the least ready to accept it. And that's a challenge. It's a challenge that we've come across. It's a challenge that we continue to come across. But I think we do need to take that step back and look at this with generalized perspective, that if the person isn't ready to accept hope or a framework for hope, there's really good reasons for that. They've likely been rejected so often and given so much misinformation that the only way that they found to survive is by rejecting these ideas of hope. I've heard it before. I've heard I was going to get better. We did this and I didn't get there. So it becomes a protective mechanism that we need to understand. And we don't break down that barrier by yelling hope in their face or saying, no, you will get there. We know that you will get there, but we have to first just listen and we have to love. How do you break down barriers? With love. That's the best way to do it. You want to break down a barrier, continually love that person until they feel safe where they're ready to open up. There's a lot of research showing that when a person goes into a provider's office, they get interrupted every 11 seconds. Now, imagine that you've been suffering for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and maybe it's with pain, maybe it's with an eating disorder, whatever it may be, but you have now built up the courage to open up about it. You've now built up this idea that I'm going to go in and tell the provider because then the provider will get me help and I'm ready to receive that help. So you go in, you've built up this incredible courage, and you sit down and the provider comes in and they go, oh, your weight's a little heavy or you're too light. Oh yeah, your blood pressure's a little off. What's up with your heart rate? Oh, what's going on here? And you're like, yeah. Got it. I actually wanted to share something with you today. Yeah, 1 second. Let me look in your chart and see what we did last time. Okay, do you want to continue with that treatment? And at that point, you shut down. Like, I came in to share my heart with you. with a respected figure, someone that I thought would truly care about me. And instead, you're just buried in this chart and buried with this idea of what you think that I need, and you're not listening to me. So what we need to do with this person to gently inspire them with hope is we just need to be there.
Yeah.
We need to sit with them. We need to listen to them. We don't know anybody's story until they have the willingness and feel safe enough to share it with us. So there's this trend going on of just showing up, and it's videos of like a 4 or 5-year-old at a chorus concert to a 21-year-old graduating. And the video is that the child or the person is looking for their people in the crowd. They're trying to find them. And it doesn't matter. You can be 50 years old, accomplish something, and you're looking for people in the crowd. I had the honor of covering the senior games, which is athletes that are 55 up to as old as you can be and want to compete. There's an 89-year-old there that crushed it. And when they're receiving their medals, 70, 80, 90 years old, they're looking around to see their family. They're looking around to see their grandkids. It's beautiful. That never goes away of just showing up for people. So if we want to gently inspire people with hope, step one is that we need to show up. We need to be there for them. We need to listen. We need to know that they need to know that we're there for them for when they are ready for those steps. And once that safety is built, once the trust has been built, then they'll be eventually ready for it. But we got to break down that barrier. And the way to do that is with love.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you used the example of the 89-year-old who wants someone to celebrate with them. Because that's really, in that moment, people want to be celebrated with and to be surrounded by people who are excited for them. But I think of hope, and I think of when I was in college doing my internship prior to graduating, I got to run a summer camp with kids ages 4 to 12. And some of them were immigrants and didn't even speak English. And some of them were just, fun and wild and like wouldn't even want to listen to you if you're talking. But the thing that I was taught immediately by my internship advisor was the biggest thing that you can do this summer is be present to these kids. So whether it was playing basketball with them or holding their hand as they were picking blueberries, all of those things mattered because they just wanted someone to be present with them. And that's what love was and is. It's doing that. And I know that there's times where we really want hope for people. I have multiple people, friends, family, whoever in my life that I want them to know this message, to live this message so that they can be free, because that's what we believe is that it really sets people free. But some of them just aren't ready yet. And so in the meantime, I can be present, I can plant seeds, and I can realize that me being present and planting seeds could take 10 years, could take 20 years. It may never be me who really unleashes it for them, but my presence, my heart, my love for them is going to at least be a stepping stone for them to get to that hope and get to that freedom someday. And that's what I think about when I think of, how do we gently inspire someone? Well, the question answered like it already. It really is be gentle with them. It's not going in your face and screaming at them or saying this is what you need to do right now. Like it really is just gentle inspiration, love, planting seeds.
Yeah, and it's a powerful conversation, and it's simple, but it's not easy because part of us showing up for other people is that we have to put our own perspectives to the side. Whatever happened to that person, it happened to them. It's not made up in their head. It's not false. It's real because that's their reality. And a quick story that I'll share, I'll never forget this. I had a clinic inside of a gym, and I got to work with this 13-year-old gymnast. So she came in and we're in the office. I'm trying to get the history and figure out what are the symptoms that she's experiencing? What are her goals? What has she been told so far? The entire time during the conversation, remind you, I'm sitting behind a desk. I have the computer open. She's on the other side of the desk. I unintentionally had already created a barrier between her and myself with the desk. Created a second barrier by having the laptop open. And I look back at it and I'm wondering, she's in her phone the entire time. So I'm asking her questions. She doesn't make any eye contact with me. She's just typing away on her phone. Yeah, my back hurts. yeah, I'm a gymnast. And the first thought that I had was, this generation has no manners. No one taught you to shake a hand, to look into eyes, to give respect to someone that's older than you. And that was my first thought. That was my first perspective. And man, how inaccurate I was with that. And in the conversation, I had to pause and go, how am I presenting myself to this teenager? Why is she on her phone? So I shut my laptop and I stood up and I came out from behind the desk, got rid of the barriers, and I said, you're a gymnast. She goes, yeah. I go, can you do a front handspring? She goes, yeah. This is the first time she put down her phone and looked me in the eyes. And I go, that's cool. Can I see it? Like, can we go out in the gym and you show me this front handspring? And she lights up and she's like, yeah, let me go show it to you. So
Wow.
she does the front handspring. And I'm like, I knew that I couldn't do it, but I knew that if I was vulnerable, then she would be vulnerable with me with the information. So I attempted a front handspring and I just flat backed onto the ground. And if you've done that, it's not comfortable. Like, I almost knocked the wind out of myself. I'm like, don't let it show right now. Like, it's fine. She's laughing. She feels safe because you just made a fool of yourself.
Ouch.
This is good. So then we go back. I go to her and I'm like, thank you so much for showing me that. I'm going to keep working on mine and maybe one day I'll be able to do it. Do you mind if we go back in the office so that I can ask you a few more questions to get a better idea of where we should go to help you? And she goes, yeah, sure. We go back into the office. She picked up her phone and I go, oh, crap. None of this worked. And she put the phone away in her purse, zipped it up and put it over to the side. I was like, this is beautiful. She's locked in now. So we were able to ask these next level questions. We're able to get a little bit deeper and still kind of nurturing the conversation. So the question I asked her was, how do you sleep at night? Because if you're not sleeping well, a lot of the things that we're doing probably won't come to fruition because you need sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when she opened up and she goes, yeah, I don't really sleep at night. Oh, tell me more about that. Well, my dad gets home from work about 8, 9 o'clock. And when he gets home at work at 8 or 9 o'clock, that's when him and my mom start fighting. And then they fight until midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And then once they're done fighting, then I'm able to go to bed. And so I asked, what do you do in that time that they're fighting? She goes, I just go on my phone. I go on Snapchat, I go on Instagram, I go on Facebook. I message my friends. I try to escape the reality that I'm living in until things cool down. And then once it cools down, I go to bed. And I was like, this poor girl, she was not on her phone initially because she was disrespectful, because her parents didn't teach her manners. She was on her phone because she was afraid. And her pattern has become, when she becomes afraid, she goes to her phone. So then when she didn't feel afraid, she was willing to put her phone away. So if we're going to show up for people and we're going to be there for them, we have to get our own perspectives out of the way and truly be present to that person that we're going to be there for.
Right. She didn't have poor manners. She was just nervous in the situation.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that story and the inspiration that is, and the healing that I'm sure that brought that girl over time. And I think that our listeners, you have an opportunity for healing over time through listening to this podcast and taking action steps. And one of the action steps that I challenge you to think about doing this week is, who can you show up for? Who can you be present to? Who can you love better this week? It can be family member, a friend, a coworker, someone, but you're worthy, you're valuable, you're important. And if you take time to show up for someone else, imagine the ripple effect that can have. And so I challenge you and I ask you, maybe consider doing that. You each are so important. And I just want to thank Joe, Callie, and Andy for asking those questions. Those questions were so helpful for myself and Dylan, and hopefully for all the other listeners. Thank you to everyone who did tune in today on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. please be sure to follow or subscribe for all new content. And thank you so much again to the people who ask questions. We're always looking for new questions to inspire hope to the listeners. And so please go to our website, hopenotnope.org, put in your questions there, however many you want, just put them in and we'll look through them and answer them week after week to see, who we can inspire with those answers. And if you liked this episode, please give it a rating, share it with a friend, and it helps us so much and it helps us spread this message of hope.
Have a great week, everyone. And remember, each day is not just an opportunity to become hopeful, it's an opportunity to become hope.